Draper City Talk is a podcast produced by the municipal government of Draper City, Utah, where we discuss local government services and issues and the community at large. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Draper Talk. I'm Mayor Troy Walker, and I want to kick us off. We have a great discussion with two of our awesome council members, Bryn Johnson and Fred Lowry. But first, I do want to thank our communications director, Linda Peterson, and Asia and Alex for putting this together and making this production as good as it is. So thank you too, and we thank Linda as well. So, council members, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have both of you. So we've done one of these already with Tasha and Catherine. So my goal was to get an opportunity to talk to all of you and get all of your perspectives about your service as council members. So that's kind of where I wanted to go today. So what I was thinking we could do is, if you don't mind, maybe Bryn, would you start? Give us a little background. Tell us about you. What makes you Bryn, and give us a little background about the things that you've done in your life to prepare yourself to be a council member. Okay,
well, I would say that 5 years ago, if someone told me that I would be on Draper City Council, I would have told them that they were crazy. It's not something that was, in my 5-year plan or something I'd ever really thought about doing. But since we moved to Utah, I grew up outside of D.C., and that's where my husband and I started our family, and we were raising a bunch of little kids, but we decided to come out here because we felt like Utah just had a better work-life balance. That's what we were seeking. And when we moved here, I became very involved in my kids' school. So I served on the school community council. I served on PTA. Just for years and years, I did that. And I think that my path is a little bit interesting because, like I said, I didn't have any intention of running for public office, but one night, my husband sat me down. He said, I need to talk to you about something. And I said, okay. And he opens up his laptop, and he created this PowerPoint presentation of all the reasons why I should run for city council.
Your husband?
My husband did.
Oh, so I need to talk to you about something. You're thinking it's some serious trauma. He might be sick.
Or maybe he needed to go golfing again. It blew my mind away. I had no idea. Now, my husband is very much more into politics than I ever was. And so, he had graphs. It was a pretty intense presentation. And at the time I was, serving as like the secretary for the PTA. I was going to school. We were planning my daughter's wedding. And I said, you are insane. I am not doing this. This is crazy. But as I thought about it, I drove around Draper for the next few days. I thought a lot of what he said really resonated with me. And the statement that he said that made the biggest impact on me was that he said, most women who run for public office need someone else to encourage them to do so because they don't think they're qualified. They don't think they have the experience. They don't think they're smart enough to do it. And I said, that's exactly how I feel. I never would have just done it on my own. So one day as I was running errands, I drove by City Hall, I stopped in and I filled out, all the paperwork to run. And I told him, and he was really excited, and I had no idea what was going to happen. But, I just thought I would take the chance, and now here I am.
And next time I see Lad, I'm going to be like, so why didn't you run, dude? Yeah.
No, and it's interesting because I think the point that he was trying to make is that I have already been invested in the community. So it's a natural step. Our kids were getting, I had one kid left at home, and he said that this would be a really great place for you to spend your time and energy. And he said, I think you would really enjoy it, and I think you would thrive at it. And so whenever something tough, like that first year, if something tough came up, I would come into his office. I'm like, this is all your fault. You told me to do it.
I'm assuming most of the driving ranges are open at night on Tuesdays too, right? It gives him a way to.
Yes, he should. He should go do that.
Council meeting.
Yes.
He's hitting golf balls.
Yes, exactly.
Well, give me a little. Tell us a little bit about your education. You said you're going to school, and you're in school again. So
I'm in school again. So I got my undergraduate when I was in my 20s at BYU. I never really utilized it. And then I started volunteering with a foundation that was hoping to help women and mothers. And I had experience with that, but I didn't have any education. So I went back to get a degree in child and marriage and family studies online. I got it at BYU Idaho online, and it was fascinating. And during that time, I ran for city council, and I was really surprised with how many of the classes that I had taken had prepared me for some of the experiences I would have on city council. And when I was getting ready to graduate from BYU Idaho, I thought, I love learning. I want to go on and I want to do something else. And so I decided to pursue a Master of Public Administration down at SGU, which is also online, and that has been really enjoyable. It's really helped me understand a little bit more about why the city does what we do.
It's awesome. All right, Fred, tell us about Fred Lowry. You know, you're synonymous with Draper in many people's minds. You've been here a long time, but give us a background of Fred Lowry.
Well, I love Draper, and it has been a part of my life for a majority of my life. I grew up just on the border of Draper in Sandy, but Draper was part of my playground. As you know, Mayor, we went to high school together when we were much younger. And,
Go Hawks!
Yeah. Yes, go Hawks! And we won't talk about all those days at Alta for this podcast, which would be appropriate.
Yes, indeed. It's better not to hash all of it over.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Draper has been a big part of my life. I graduated from Alta High School. I then went to Brigham Young to BYU and graduated there and married my wife, who was from Las Vegas. I brought her here to Utah. She swore she would never live here in Utah, but we loved raising our family here. And I was just thinking, we have 6 children. I was just realizing that just this week, it will be 29 years that we actually moved here to Draper and have raised our family live in the same neighborhood.
That's awesome. And you're a rodeo guy too. I mean, you used to ride, right?
I did a lot of riding. Yes.
Yeah, and so you probably did some of that out in our arena.
I did ride in that arena and have ridden many of the trails. And I grew up on the cow cutting horse circuit with my dad. So when I was about 10 or 11, I started riding with him.
And you know, just for folks to know, this year we're doing something different with the way we're doing. We've been changing Draper Days up and over the last couple of years, and our goal has really just been to really kind of make it more of a city-controlled event where we can really just manage it. It's ultimately saved us money and given us the ability to be really clear on what we're doing. But we just appointed you to be our rodeo chair. So it's a new council assignment, but a new job for you to do to keep our already fantastic rodeo just moving forward.
Yeah, the mayor, you did wrangle me,
yes,
so to speak. No pun intended. In being the rodeo chair, and I think it's great to be able to continue the tradition of the rodeo, and it's a great time this year where we're going to celebrate the 250th year.
I know
of our country, and to be able to tie that all in.
I remember 1976 actually, and that what a big deal it was then. So. And in addition, your family business operated here in Draper for most of your career, right?
Yes, we moved our office here in 2000, and just down the street. And I've always wanted to contribute here to the community.
That's awesome. Thank you. And you're also involved in schools. You're the current chair of the Canyons Education Foundation.
I serve on the Canyons Education Foundation board, and which is a great thing to be able to tie in with the service here in Draper.
We just had our gala last night, and you did a great job running that. It was a great event. All right, so we got some background on you. Let's talk about, Fred, let's start with you on this one. Why did you run for council? And first of all, why did you run for city council?
I think anyone that's run for city council and then is elected asks themselves that question periodically throughout their time they're serving, is why did I do this?
Yes.
And I did it because I care about this community. I sincerely do. I've never people tease once you're elected. I know, Bryn, you hear that about being a politician and everything, and I don't consider myself a politician. I'm just trying to do something to help serve the community. And I had been involved in the community over the years. I remember when I first moved here, there was this big movement about Corner Canyon.
Oh, yeah.
And we had all these acres of open space, and do we really want to pass a bond to preserve that? And I remember printing up flyers thinking we cannot allow this opportunity to preserve that space. And that right there, seeing us being able to preserve that was one of those things that sparked me wanting to become involved in the community. And then we had a the Draper Community Development Corporation that was formed in the early 2000s. David Dobbins, who became our city manager, was assigned to oversee that, and I had the opportunity to work with him and work in areas here in the community. And then I was on the Planning Commission, and being involved in those areas really helped me see a little bit of how the city government works.
Yeah, and if you want, you go back to that open space preservation. So everyone knows we've preserved about 5,000 acres of open space across the city when we bought Suncrest, and 2,500 acres there, and we've acquired it. But the real linchpin of that whole thing was that first movement to that 10 acres that is essentially the belly of Corner Canyon, right up the middle. If you think of Canyon Hollow Trail, Ghost Falls Trail, Rattler on the side going up, that would have been houses. Had you guys, you and many others, even Marsha Vaudry has been on our council, had you folks not gotten behind it and said, hey, we need to do something here different. And that was really monumental.
It really was. And I don't think a lot of residents realize how close it was that bond almost didn't pass. And
That's right.
I think anybody now to even think that wouldn't have not happened is
How many acres
unfathomable.
was it?
It seemed like it was more than 10, but
I
it
thought
was
like 25 acres. I might be wrong.
it was a large piece.
But it was a lot of money, wasn't it?
Well, I wanted to say it was like a $40 million bond.
I don't think it was that much, but it was
But
a lot.
it was a big bond, and it didn't. I thought it was a no-brainer, but it did barely pass, and I think all of us celebrate now.
I mean, I remember voting for that. It was probably the first time as what I considered myself a Republican, and small government and all that. But I remember thinking, oh yeah, this is a time where government's making the right move, because this will be quality of life. This is what makes living here fantastic. That I think it's 10 or 20 acres, whatever it was, and then we added onto it. But yeah, I always want to commend the group that spearheaded that, because that was truly the beginning of what we have now. And we have thousands of acres, a couple hundred miles of trails for everybody: horses, bikers, cyclists, hikers. But that really started it all. So.
Well, and there were some great leaders here in our community that helped really have the foresight of that we have to compliment.
Oh yeah, Mayor Smith.
Long time
Yep.
residents here. And I don't think, Mayor, for you and me, anytime I'm on those trails, every time I look at it, I think, oh, this is amazing that we live here.
Yeah. I'm astounded that I can leave my driveway on my bike, ride safely on paved trails to the dirt trail, generally speaking. It's amazing. It's fantastic. Okay, Bryn, you told us why you did it, because of LAD. Now tell us, let's go to you. Talk about, what do you think about being a city council member? Well, what is it? Give it to us here.
Yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed it. I think I'm a kind of a behind the scenes person. I don't really like this makes me very uncomfortable sitting right here. I'm kind of a boots on the ground. Give me an assignment, I'll go do it. And I think that's what I was doing before I was on city council. I worked with the city to get a stoplight installed on Highland Drive, which was a very long and lengthy process that involved coming to city council, talking to city staff about that. So that's kind of where I feel comfortable, is working on something, trying to get something done, not necessarily in the public spotlight. And so I think those kinds of aspects of city council are where I feel the most comfortable. If there's a problem, what can we do to solve it? Hearing feedback from residents, I really do appreciate that, because we don't know everything that's going on at all times in the city. We need residents to say, do you know about this? I'm concerned about this. And so that's the part that I really enjoy.
I have a great Bryn story, because Bryn is like a quiet warrior. She truly is. One of the things I'm most impressed about you dig in. But we were dealing with the gravel pit. You'll remember this. And because I love to fly, I offered to take any council member up in a plane, and we could fly over it as many times, get a good bird's eye view of what we were talking about. Well, Bryn takes me up on it. And so I don't have an airplane of my own anymore, so I'm renting this airplane. And I had never actually flown this particular airplane. But we get out there, and I get in it with Bryn, and it was one that it was missing a radio. It had a few. I'm sure for Bryn, it did not look like a plane she really wanted to climb in with me. But to her credit, she didn't say a word. I think we were on our third loop around the gravel pit. And I said, so you're pretty comfortable with this. I mean, I said, do you want to go circle your house and call your family out to let them wave to you? And she said, no. And I said, well, why not? And she's like, I didn't tell them I was doing this, and I've never been in a little airplane before, and I'm scared to death.
Yeah, I was pretty sure we were going to die, but then I thought it would make the news, so my family didn't need to know. So yeah, they didn't know until I came home.
Yeah, she was like, and she held the terror. Her terror was not detectable by me, so I'm giving you that. But yeah, brave to get in a plane with me. I was actually a little bit. I thought, well, this is not the cockpit presentation I would want for a first-time person, but we made it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Fred, tell us. We know why you did it. Tell us what you think's been the most challenging thing.
Well, I want to just comment about Bryn real quickly too. Is she models what a council member really should be, and I sincerely mean that in that the way she researches every item.
Oh yeah.
And asks questions, and I think if people realize the amount of work that she spends behind the scenes on things, it's very admirable, and I think it's a great way that any decision she makes, she's researched it.
Oh yeah,
which shows you being willing to jump on a plane with you.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest challenges, there's many. One of the ones that has surprised me is the challenge of dealing with the state legislature. And I don't want to open up a hotbed here, but there's so many things that have been dictated to us here as a city that I wasn't expecting. And I think that's been one of the biggest challenges, is navigating that while we're following mandates that the state is giving us, while also trying to help the citizens understand what we need to do, while we're also trying to preserve Draper that we all want to preserve.
That is an excellent point, and I would second you on that probably being the most difficult challenge. I said this year to a couple of key legislators, why do you have to make our jobs harder every single year? And one of them looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, every time I come up here, I'm fighting something that's making it harder to be a mayor, harder to be a council member. Why? Why do you have to do it every single year? So yeah, that's definitely a good frustration point. Bryn, what's been the most challenging thing for you?
I mean, I would agree with Fred, and I appreciate his compliments. It's very nice to hear. I think dealing with the state and regulations and policies that you have to implement that you didn't necessarily choose has been really, really, has been a struggle for me. I would say on a positive note, I feel like as a council, we work really well together. And that's something that I had a little bit of trepidation coming into, because you hear stories, and it makes the news and you think, oh, what's going to happen? But I've been impressed with, to echo what Fred said about me, I would say the same is true for all of our council members, that they're really dedicated to the city. They look at multiple viewpoints. It's not just, this is what I want and I want to get this done, so how do we get this done? So I've been really impressed with how Draper City works and functions.
Yeah, I would second that too. I think as a group, we don't always agree on everything, but what I appreciate about all of the council members is everybody's looking out for the best interests of Draper. There's not one of you that I ever think to myself, oh, they've got some personal interest in this. I've never seen it. I appreciate it very much. And you guys, and look, some of the votes, a lot of the votes, they're tough. I mean, they impact relationships with our friends and neighbors and you folks, as our jobs is we have to look at what's best for the entire city. And sometimes one neighborhood over here or one neighborhood over here, they may hate, what we're doing. But when you have to look at and balance land use, I think you said it. When I started in elected office, we had significant autonomy in land use. Every year, it's been chipped away. If the state legislature had its way, at least some of them, this current one not so much, at least not last year, but the one before, had it had its way, we would be out of land use business. There are plenty of legislators who would like cities to be out of the land use business. And folks, what that means is you won't have anywhere to complain. You won't have a meeting to come to and even get a grievance heard or have us make a change. Like I think last Tuesday we're dealing with our stationary plan at Kimball's Lane, and none of us like it because it got forced on us. But we negotiated the most least intense stationary plan in all the stationary plans in Utah because we all worked hard to do it. But that was a meeting where people could still come and say, hey, what about this? What about that? When state land authority or when our local land authority is taken, people, it'll be a different world. And listen, most states don't have local land use authority like we do. So it's important for sure. But I think that's for sure. Let's talk for a little bit about and let's start, Fred, with you. What do you think that has been the most rewarding thing about being a council member?
Oh, I think for me, one of the most rewarding things is interacting with the residents. It really is. Even if when you have experiences, like I think about the public hearing we just had on Tuesday with the stationary area plan, and it's great when residents come and voice their concerns. And you hear their concerns. We talk about the traffic and the bottleneck that's maybe going to happen at that certain area, and we all see it and we hear it, but they know that there isn't necessarily a solution to it, but at least they can voice it. And I think one of the most rewarding things is if you look at the different events that we have, when people are gathering together, and you see our community coming together, like at Draper Days, or at these other amazing events that our city puts together, when you see people gathering and just enjoying each other, to me that's one of the most rewarding things is being a part of that to create opportunities for our community.
Bryn, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Fred. I would also say that I have been so impressed with the quality of our residents and how giving, compassionate they are. I think every week I'm learning about another venture that someone in our city is doing to help other people, or even the struggles that people have. That sometimes you feel like your life is really hard, and you hear more about what other people are going through, and you recognize that you're very blessed. And so I agree with Fred. It's that interaction with residents that I love. I think it's so important as a council member.
And people want to volunteer. Don't they? It's amazing how many people want to contribute in some way to the community.
And my first experience with Draper City, besides kind of like I said, behind the scenes trying to get stuff done, was to volunteer on the Draper Historic Preservation Commission, which I love. I'm so grateful for that time that I had on there, and I would encourage other people to, we have so many different areas. If you're passionate about something, that we have a place for you.
Right. Let's talk about. I'm going to take a little detour from what was our talking points because I think I want to talk about this. You've both talked about the good things. Let's talk about another challenge. I'm going to get your take, each of you. A couple weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, the Salt Lake County Board of Realtors released the median home prices of all cities in Salt Lake County. If you haven't seen this, folks, there's a city that was number one on the highest median home price in Salt Lake County, and that was Draper City, Utah, at a $990,000 median home price. Now, that's a good thing, and it's a bad thing. It's a good thing in the sense that you've had residents say this to you. If you do this over here, you put that housing right here, you put that store over here, you're going to wreck my property values. And I always look at people and say, no, we're not. And we haven't. And Draper, I think that chart showed in the last 6 years or 8 years, property has nearly gone up 54%. So give me your take on that, because this housing shortage is real. I have, my children, like I've said this a number of times, I've got adult children. I have one in college. But 3 of my kids are still renting from me as they're saving up to find a place to buy. So let's talk about the housing situation. Now, we're mostly built out. We don't have a lot left, but we have the point. So do you want to start with that? Really quick, give us your take on, how we're managing it and what you think of it.
Yeah, I think as a city, we're doing a really good job of trying to provide multiple kinds of housing. On Tuesday night, we approved 2 different development agreements that had, smaller homes and then also townhomes and condos. And I think that was a critical decision because we don't have a lot of housing that's, under $500,000 or even $800,000 in the city. And, I'm in the same position as you are, Mayor Walker, that, we're remodeling our home so that if our kids, as they graduate, need to stay with us, we have the space that they might need, because I don't think my kids can afford a house. And that's frightening as a parent, because, you want to give your kids a good head start, and they may not be in the same position that we were at their age, if that makes sense.
I remember buying my house 22 years ago for $550,000, and it was really a struggle for me to afford it. I couldn't buy my house today. I couldn't do it. And I make decent money. Some years really good, some. I couldn't buy my house at the interest rates today. I couldn't do it. And, that's something. I mean, it's something to be concerned about. Fred?
Yeah, it is. And, you talk about that report that was just released. In some respects, it puts a rock in my stomach, because it is nice to see the property values where they're at. However, it is a concern. I think about my own children. I've been fortunate that some of mine were able to get into homes prior to some of this craziness. However, I have, some that they want to live here in Draper.
Yeah.
And you wonder, how are they going to be able to afford it? And I think of options like you just talked about, Bryn, that we approved this last week even, that are more reasonably sized homes. The plan there at 118th South, that transit area plan there, one of the great things that I hope people realize, we required in that development agreement that all of those have to be owner occupied and owner purchased.
Yep.
So we've helped protect investors coming in and buying those all up and renting them out. We're hoping that will, and there's townhomes there and areas that we hope that will provide opportunities for ownership here in this city.
And I think it's important for the public to know that we do this stuff to be in front of the legislature. We do this the way we're doing it to demonstrate as an example that let us have land use authority. We're capable as council members to plan, in the parameters that we know you're wanting to force us into. And the station area plans really was came out of a big battle I had with a developer, but at least it gives us some say. And so if you think, I've had people say, you're ruining Draper, you're taking away the charm. I'm not. I'm just trying to stay in front of the ultimate revocation of our land use authority. So we're demonstrating the ability to plan in ways that are uncomfortable to all of us, but necessary to keep us. And I can go to the governor with a straight face and say, look, we are doing the things you say. And he agrees. In fact, this Kimball's Lane project, it's one of the projects they're highlighting as an example. And that ownership component that required, fantastic. So.
And can I just add one more comment on this too, is as outrageous as the prices are, you look back at when you bought the home that you just moved here to Draper. I remember my parents saying, how are you ever going to be able to afford a home? And,
right.
And we figured it out. And I believe this next generation, they will figure it out. There might have to be some different adjustments somewhere, but it will get figured out.
Gone are the days. I remember in college and young, you could rent an apartment for $500, find somebody's basement. You can't rate an RV for $500 now. I mean,
no, yeah, and I also think that just kind of changing our mentality about what a forever home looks like. A forever home can be a townhome, and that's a great place to raise a family. And I think this development agreement that we just approved on Tuesday night, there's little playgrounds and trails throughout the development and a clubhouse, and so that'd be a great community to live in. So I think just, like Fred said, we just have to make some adjustments, and I think we'll still have a charming Draper.
That's even more why it's important that the parks that we have, which we've continued to expand, and how we take care of those, how more of a vital asset they are to the community.
Parks, trails, and open space. And the Point, which is our next big development, one of the central figures of the Point is the River to Range Trail. And there's also a 10-acre city park in there. But we believe in trails and connection and open space because we know that's quality of life, and that's a great point because our parks are fantastic. So, well, you guys, we're at the end of our time. I just want to say I really appreciate you both coming in and talking today, and I most definitely appreciate working with both of you. It's been a real pleasure for me. You two are the fine examples of people. You're some of the people I respect the most in my life, and so I really appreciate working with you, and I think Draper City is very lucky to have people like you that are dedicated. care and actually put in the effort to keep making this a wonderful place to live. So thank you both for your service.
Well, thank you. And I would say the same for you. I've never met somebody who cares as much about a city as I have. And the work that you do also behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about. It takes a lot of time and effort. And so, I appreciate that as a council member.
I echo that, Bryn. I get asked quite often, like, how's Mayor Walker? And then I explain all of the work that you do that people have no idea. There is hours and hours that it's more than a full-time job. And Mayor, we appreciate the dedication that you've given to our city
as well. And I probably cross that question a lot just because of my personality, but it's our, and we work collectively, and I do my best to keep you guys informed as to what's going on behind the scenes. Because some people might think, why is the council doing this? And I'm like, I always say we go to the legislature anymore. I've had other cities when I'm league president say, why don't we go up there and fight for stuff? And why don't we go up there and come up with our own bills? And I look at them and say, because we're fighting dragons. We're just trying to kill crazy stuff, and we do a lot, but there's no offense. They had 1,010 bills proposed this session. Now, these are small government Republicans. Don't forget, small government. 1,010, they passed over 590 bills in 45 days. So yeah, it's a battle to stay in front of it. I want to put one last plug in for our good rep, Cal Roberts. He did a great job for us this session, and he's got the city's voice in mind and understands what we're doing. So thank you guys for coming again, and thank you for serving.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's the final for this session of Draper Talk. We'll see you next time. For timely information about Draper City news, events, traffic alerts, and public safety emergencies, you may subscribe to email or text notifications from Draper City by visiting draperutah.gov/notify, or follow us on social media at Draper City, Utah on Facebook, at Draper City on Instagram and X, and at Draper City Gov on YouTube. This has been Draper City Talk. Please join us again.